When I was young, I learned sign language. And so now when I get stuck, I use sign language. That's actually helped me a lot. It's kind of like a different kind of memory thing.
Welcome to Bible Memory Goal. My name is Josh, and you just heard from Lisa Anderson. She's an attorney in North Texas who has almost finished memorizing the entire book of Luke. And she's going to walk you through how she did that, why it's taken her almost 15 years to do that, and then break down her process of what she does and how she reviews. But I wanted to get started with the story of what inspired her to start memorizing Scripture.
I lived down the street from a lady named Susan Turner. And we always had a neighborhood Bible study. And one day she invited all the ladies that were in the Bible study to come to brunch. And we didn't know why. And when we got there, Janet Turner was the speaker. And
Janet Pope?
Janet Pope was the speaker.
Yeah.
And she got up and she recited. And Janet is very gifted when she recites. It's beautiful. And she has a lot of things memorized from the Bible. And so she's one of those people you look at and go, yeah, I can't do that. You know?
Yeah.
It was beautiful, but I wasn't particularly like going to do anything. And then my friend Susan Turner, who's a nice, normal person, very intelligent lady, but just a lady I've known forever, recited Luke 1 and 2. And I went home bawling my eyes out, telling my husband I wanted to do that. And so that year, it was right before Christmas. So that year I worked on Luke 2, to get that section of it, and really loved it. And then thought, this is great, and got right through the Christmas story right before Christmas. And boy, this is great. And then I didn't do anything for a year. Yep. And it kind of floundered. And I was like, okay, I did that. Then again, Susan with Janet started a Bible memory group that met at Susan's house. And that about a year later, and she said, do you want to do this? And I said, yes. And then we started meeting every month. And that's been, 13, 14 years.
Wow. 13 or 14 years.
Yeah, that we've been doing it. And I've actually now moved an hour and a half away from the neighborhood I was in Dallas. And Susan is still kind enough to have us on Zoom. So I still do it every month. Yeah. So it is a huge blessing. And Janet's part of the group. And holds me accountable and gives me I think the best thing about group is I don't realize a month goes so quickly. I get the notice that says group is on Monday and you go, oh my goodness, it's been a month. And where have I moved forward? What have I done? Yeah. So
yeah. I mean, that's the beauty of accountability. When you've got that, it does kind of keep you taking steps forward, you know, and making sure that you're continually taking steps forward. And I'm curious, before that moment, did you know that your friend who lived down the street memorized Scripture at all? Or was this like a shock to you that she stood up?
Yeah, total shock. And I don't think she'd ever done it before. She met Janet and they worked on a ministry together, and Janet, as part of that ministry, recited. And that's when Susan got exposed to it. And so it kind of trickled on down to the rest of us that way.
Yeah.
And then Susan still does it and is still doing it regularly. So.
I find that for many of us, memorizing Scripture is a very personal, kind of internal thing. Mm-hmm. But it's stories like yours, and I've heard these type of stories all the time, is you get inspired when you see the normal person going and doing that. And I find that, it feels really out of your comfort zone, but it's one of those things that I encourage people when you, not to like show off, but like when you have the opportunity, it is inspiring. And most of the time your closest network, your people don't know that you're even memorizing. And so it is such a really, really cool thing to be able to do something like that.
Yeah. No, I look back on a couple of times in my life when somebody asked me, and I, of course, said, oh, no, I don't want to do that. And now I know that's not the response. Because if someone really seeks it out, they want to know what it's like. And so I always try to have something. If somebody says, oh, I'd love to hear you recite, I want something that I could say off the top of my head so that they can kind of see what blessing it is to have that internalized and know that all the time. Yeah.
Exactly. So you made it through Luke 2. And my understanding is you're almost finished, like will be in the next few months, with the entire book of Luke. Is that correct?
That's right. Yeah. So
Wow. And was it
great.
just because of Luke 2 that you decided I'm going to do Luke, or what is it that made you decide I'm going to start with one of the longest books in the Bible, or at least in the New Testament?
Yeah. Uh, when I was growing up, I always loved the book of Luke. Kind of all of the Gospels, he always felt like he was talking to me. I always liked the Jesus talks a lot in the book of Luke and teaches a lot. And I always was drawn to it. And then Susan did Luke 2. And so after I finished Luke 2, I prayed about what should I do. And it was kind of like, we'll do Luke 3. I did not go back to Luke 1. Luke 1 is long and it kind of starts out tough. So I went to Luke
Yeah.
3 and 4. And once I got back into doing it, and it was just kind of like, well, I can stop this any day. It's not, I didn't view it as the whole book. It would be great if I could do the whole book, but I was kind of like, no, just keep going on this journey until I feel like I need to move on. And I've had a couple of other things, like a friend of mine wanted to go walk in and we walked regularly and she wanted to do Romans 8. So I did Romans 8 with her. Or, if I do a Bible study, I try to pick a section out of the book we're studying and memorize it. And that's kind of my keeper verses to remind me of the Bible study. But otherwise, I just love focusing on Luke. And I'll tell you, I got 27 verses left. And I've I'm starting to do better and learning how to, review. My review system always changes, but it's getting better. But I'm looking forward to going back and doing some of those that I've lost because I just love it so. It's just been such a blessing to me. Yeah.
Wow. Well, I want to dive into your process, both of memorizing and reviewing, in just a moment. But before we get into that, I wanted to ask you, as you've started this memorizing, which sounds like you've been doing for 13, 14
15
years. Is that
years,
correct?
yeah.
15 years now.
Yeah.
What are the biggest benefits that you have experienced from memorizing and being a part of this group that memorizes, as opposed to, and not necessarily that one is better than the other, but what are the differences between that and doing something like just a Bible study or just reading? Like what have you experienced personally?
Well, I'm kind of a type A personality, and I have,
Okay.
when you go to Bible and you're supposed to have your quiet time and you're supposed to spend the time reading the Bible. And I'm one of those people that, I'm constantly distracted and thinking about what I should be doing, which what I should be
Sure.
doing is that, but I don't think of
Yeah.
it. And
Yeah.
so Bible memory, internalizing those passages has given me a focus that it calms me, and I use it when I'm doing it. I find it very calming and wonderful to actually, when you're memorizing something, you notice things in words you would never notice if you were just
Yeah.
reading it. There's just no way sometimes you get to a passage and you go, why did God say that way? There's a reason he said it that way. And so you see those things. One of the things I love, and everybody in our group says, is you own the passage.
Yes.
It's you hear the passage, it's like, oh, that's my passage. I know that, that passage is in me, and I feel
Yes.
that, and that's a joy. Since I've been doing Luke, I'm following Jesus, and he'll say something, and then he'll either say it again and again and again, which is, okay, Lisa, we're supposed to be listening to this, or there'll be a change because of something that's happened or something he's teaching. And I'm like, okay, I memorized this, 8 chapters ago. Why is it different now? What's happened? So you're aware of those things, which are wonderful. And I think particularly, we grow up going to listen to a sermon or reading a passage, and we get a point, but we don't apply it to the bigger. And God gave us all the bigger. So we got to spend the time seeing what he's trying to say, because there's more to it than, oh, let's talk about this story and here's the point of that story. The rest of it together has a richness that you just don't get from reading it. And so it's been huge for me that way. A friend of mine said, it's, sitting at the feet of Jesus, trying to listen and learn. And what I've learned too is it's worth the time. It should be a priority because it's that kind of blessing. It's that kind of thing that changes me and helps me grow closer to knowing God.
Yeah, that's fantastic. You just mentioned, certain words that would kind of strike you differently. Is there one example that you could, share from either Luke or Romans 8 or something that kind of hits you differently?
Sure. Well, one thing, easy one is Jesus at the beginning tells the disciples to go out and not take anything. And then later on, he tells them to take everything and go buy a sword. And when you're going through the whole book, you're watching the progression of what is happening in his life, in his ministry, and what he's facing. And as it just strikes you differently when you're memorizing it. He's looking at these same people and saying that. So there's things like that. Otherwise, it's just that I will have somebody say, they'll say something biblical, and I'm not, spot checking or anything, but they'll say it, and I'll think it's not quite that. And it makes you appreciate the difference in the words. What really is being said.
I've had that happen too. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, our mutual friend Janet Pope told me when she emailed me and said I should get in contact with you. She said that she described you as a busy attorney. And I don't know if that's true or not, but if that's the case, and this is something that everybody feels, it's like, I hear this all the time. I'm so busy. How is it that you're able to carve out that time in the midst of being a busy attorney?
Yeah, I think, and when I started, I had 2 little boys, and we were homeschooling them and working as attorneys, both of us. And so it was a lot, but I think everybody has to find their times. I know you walk, I kind of jog walk, and I do it then. There are other times that you just know, this is a good time to do this. I'm not very good. I'm great at doing Bible memory when I'm washing dishes. But there's other activities that if I'm actually engaged in the activity, I can't do Bible memory. But the biggest thing I've learned is just take the verse and just keep saying it to yourself. Just kind of make that the verse. And rather than getting overwhelmed with the book of Luke or the chapter you're doing, it's amazing to me. You take one verse and go over it, and then add another verse and go over it, and then another. And pretty soon it goes quickly and smoothly, and there's a picture and there's a flow, and you learn from that. And, God does that. I mean, he really does. And but you do have to spend the time and think about it. I have a lot of ladies that say, well, I can't do that. And I'm like, sure you can. Tell me how to make chicken parmesan. And they'll tell me. And I'm like, well, if you can do chicken parmesan, you can do a verse of the Bible, Yeah.
Yeah, it's that step-by-step process. I even know for myself that when I'm still in the book of John right now, the Gospel of John, and I've honestly become a lot more discouraged going through that than I have, going through 2 Timothy or going through Colossians or Galatians. And I think part of it is because exactly what you're saying. I tend to, when I'm going through John, look at it as the entire book. I'm like, oh my gosh, I am making such slow progress. I'm never gonna fit. And I hear what you're saying. It's like instead of seeing that whole thing, just be okay with taking those one steps every day, the one verse at a time and going through that.
I think it helped me that before I started, I worked at trying to memorize a few verses and never got anything. Nothing. I never had a verse. The Lord's Prayer, because everybody says it. But I was like, I definitely can't do this. Okay, I just can't do this. This is just not my skill set. And when I saw Susan and I saw she did it, I thought, yes, you can. And I prayed about it. And then when I looked at it, when people tell me I can't do it, I go, okay, can you do one verse? And I'll say, yeah, I got one verse. I say, you know what? You're way ahead of me for the first 52 years of my life. Okay? So, already you're doing great. Just stop there. Stop there and say that verse a lot and kind of be set in that verse. It'll give you a hunger for more. You'll see another verse that'll speak to you and God will move your heart and move on to that one. It kind of little bites because, I tell people, I hope I live long enough to finish Luke. And so far, he's kept me here. And that's what I'd like to do.
That's wonderful. I love that advice. If you don't mind transitioning over into a little bit more of the practical side of things.
Yep.
It sounds like you're doing a verse a day. Is that kind of your pace? And then if so, how do you go about memorizing?
Over the years, I've done a lot of different things. And kind of when I'm into the chapter, maybe I sit down and I'll do, a verse a day, or I generally did like 4 or 5 verses a week because that would work with my schedule. Weekends are busy.
Yep.
We're busy with the kids and all that stuff. So I would do that. Then I got into reviewing because I loved the chapters I had, and I stopped doing verses, which is why these last 2 chapters have been hanging there for a year and a half. Okay. And I finally got to the point of saying, this is silly. And I looked at it and said, okay, I'm going to do 7 verses a month. And that's what I'm doing right now. Okay. So I'm doing 7 verses a month and reviewing. And it's going to take me like 11 months or 12 months to do the 2 chapters, which is 85 verses. It's not that much. But I thought what happened was I was kind of totally stuck and I just can't do those 2 chapters. And I thought, no, you can do 7 verses a month. That's not very much. And so I started kind of setting that as my goal. And so I finished one of the chapters and I'm part of the way through the next chapter. And so it's kind of like you kind of work with what your life is and what your motivation is that time. And at that point, I was just so stuck. Before, I was trying to do 2 chapters a year, whatever that meant. And so that wasn't that much, but it was just something that was workable for me. And I thought, there's 24 chapters. If I just could proceed, I'll get it in 12 years. So, I just kind of readjust because I don't want it to become something that kind of beats up on me. That becomes a chore or a drudge or something. And funny is the 7 verses a month. I looked the other day, if I had been doing for the last 15 years only 7 verses a month, I would have finished the book of Luke a year ago. And it's like, okay, something's wrong with this picture. Because there were months when I was pushing myself and it's like, no, maybe I was my own worst enemy. I just needed to enjoy that. And now I feel like the 7 verses a month I get, they're really strong because I do them a lot, Yeah. And then
And when you do those, are you writing it down? Are you just repeating it over and over? Like what is your methodology for those memory verses?
I tend to print it out and carry it with me everywhere. And I have it in my pocket all the time. And I do extra large print when I'm learning it. And that way I can walk or jog with it. I have it on the side of my refrigerator. I have it on my bathroom window or my bathroom mirror or my bathroom wall. I have a copy in the car. I have a copy on my desk. And so it's just kind of like, if I think of it, I could just look over and see it. Because if I have to go get it or have to do something with it, I won't do it.
That friction.
It's got to be so easy. Yeah. So I do that. I carry that with me. If I wrote it out, I'd never do it because I'd write too slow. And I just repeat it. It's just rote memory for that. And I enjoy that and that works. I have listened to some of your videos about mind palaces, which I'm not going to get into them, but I am starting on the review process to do it with my paragraphs.
Yeah.
I'm going to make make mini mind palaces that the hardest thing about a chapter for me is what follows next. I mean, a lot of times because it's the gospel, it's chronological. But then there'll be chapters where they're not, and I'm trying to remember, okay, we're going to talk about the disciples, and then we're going to talk about Simon, and then we're going to talk about the disciples again, and I need something, and I thought maybe that would help me picture the paragraphs in a chapter, because I have the other part. So I'm gonna give it a shot. I'm gonna keep listening to your videos.
Okay, that's great. Yeah, actually, I had someone ask me the other day. They were like, do people that speak use mind palaces? And the funny thing is the term mind palace is actually it encompasses a lot of different things. And I think that some speakers that I know use mnemonics. which is in my thought process is kind of like a subcategory of a mind palace because you're using those visuals,
Uh-huh.
and that's something that you could do as well is like using some kind of mnemonic to keep the order in your head,
Yeah.
whether that's like a mini story or it could be a actual mind palace location.
I started when I was young. I learned sign language, and so now when I get stuck, I use sign language. And so I will, if I'm stuck on a certain passage I can't get over, I'll sign that part of it, because if I only sign it periodically, that sticks in my head. It's kind of like a different kind of memory thing, that I'm doing something with my hands that remind me the word order and what the words are. So that's actually helped me a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great idea. I've whenever I'm reviewing a verse and I find that I get stuck on one particular word every time, I have to come up with something different, something that is, I'm not using that particular method, or so it could be hand motions. I haven't thought about, doing
Yeah.
something like sign language. That's amazing.
Yeah. It's been good. Yeah.
Cool. So you mentioned a little bit about your review process. Let's kind of finish up here. How has your review process changed over the course of memorizing the book of Luke?
Well, it's one of those things that I think is so personal on how you do it. But, I kept asking people, what do you do? How do you do it? And getting different ideas and trying it. And I got into them and then they all flopped. A couple of years ago, Janet Pope actually did like a little seminar for our group on what she does and some other methods kind of from hers. And I took that and adapted it to my lifestyle so that I could do my new verses, review, have a focus for review. And then there's some things I want to review every month just because I love them.
Yeah.
Like Romans 8, I love and I don't want to lose. And so I've kind of set up a little chart. And so far, the last couple of years, that's been really good because I feel like I'm learning new and reviewing and getting really good quality on the review.
Is that like you've physically written out this chart?
Yeah.
Is that what that is?
I'm
Okay.
old, Joe.
No, I think it's good.
I love that kind of thing. Yeah. And I do little hash marks, if I've done Luke 24, I love Luke 24 because it's the resurrection. If I've done Luke 24, I put a little hash mark how many times I've done it that month so that I don't, because I forget, that I've done it that month.
Yeah.
So it helps me to keep track of, I've done that like 6 times. I need to do something else. I can't stick on that one. So yeah, it kind of keeps my own personal accountability.
Yeah, that makes sense. When you're breaking that out, is it like, I want to make sure that I review this on a monthly basis, this on a weekly basis, or is it just a running tally of what you've memorized and the little hash marks say what you've reviewed?
Yeah, more of a running tally of,
Okay.
when's the last time I looked at Luke 11 or something? Yeah.
Okay.
Because I can look back on
Very
the chart and kind of keep track of it. And there's a lot I need to go back for, that are gone. So
you've obviously had Janet as somebody that you've looked up to for this and befriended. And then what was the name of your other friend that got you?
Susan Turner.
Susan.
Yeah.
Okay.
She's my inspiration.
That's awesome. Now that you're 15 years in, and you being an inspiration to other people, I'm sure if you don't know that, you are. And then now even more so as people get to listen to your story, what would you say to somebody who was your position 15 years ago that's listening to you now and saying, wow, I don't know even where to get started?
I always look at it, pray. I mean, I think God kind of shows you where you ought to go. If there's something that really strikes you, we have a real good friend that does Psalms, and she loves the Psalms. And, something that you're going to grow with and you really want to focus on. And the biggest thing is figure out for your personality in your life, don't make it a chore, but make it workable. Everything in life that's worth doing takes time and takes effort. And this is so worth it. And so you just make the time in your schedule and look for pockets of time. When I go to a doctor's office and I'm waiting for an appointment, I pull the Bible up on my phone and do my memory. There's so many places in your life where there's just nothing going on that it's really a wonderful thing Don't pick up the magazine at the doctor's office that you don't care about. Go ahead and do your verses,
Yeah.
So look for things like that works for your life, and just start small and pick something that's doable, because I think you'll see the blessing once you start.
My encouragement to you after this conversation with Lisa is perhaps you need to release yourself from the burden of memorizing a certain number of verses every week or every month, or even some goal you've set for the year, and consider the long term. What is the direction you're heading? And even if you're only memorizing a couple verses a month, as long as you're continually making steps in that direction, you and I are still going to experience the benefit and the value of memorizing Scripture. We both, Lisa and I, were talking about our mutual friend, Janet Pope. She's written a book called His Word in My Heart. It's available on Amazon. And if you haven't read that, I highly recommend you do so. And then after you're done here, you can watch this interview that I did with Janet Pope, where she shares so many wonderful insights from her experience memorizing the Bible. Thank you for taking time with me today. May the Lord bless you as you continue to memorize what matters.